Hey, I hope your day is going great.
Hey guys, I just want to add some thoughts to this video. Me and Janine, we miss our students incredibly. I know that a lot of the students are missing their normal routines of going to school every day. This is an unusual time. This is a time of uncertainty right now, and I think what we all need to do is we all need to, instead of dwelling on what we could have done, what we should have done, what one politician should have done, what they shouldn't have done, the decisions people are making at the top. I think everyone needs to put this in perspective, and everyone that is making decisions right now is doing it for the better good of everybody. A lot of times in this world, it's either black or white as far as the way we do things, especially in this polarized time that we are, when you're either on one side of the political spectrum or the other, and it's almost like nobody can get along with each other. But there is a gigantic gray area, guys. Things can get done in more than one way. And one thing that I want to focus on with my YouTube channel now, I'm going to put some of the farming stuff on hold, because I really want to focus on having, especially my students that I'm not with anymore from day to day, I want to make sure that they have available to them some activities for them to do, and also hear a familiar voice that's a familiar teaching voice to them. All right guys, today's math lesson is going to involve helping me out with our earth garden bed preparation. You'll notice so far we have 3 beds planted. The dimensions of each one of these beds right here is 3 feet wide and it's 35 feet long. Okay, so the problems that I have are going to relate to these beds right here. Looking up here, we have it labeled. Each bed is 35 feet long. It's also 3 feet wide this way, okay? So my first question to you guys is question 1 says, what is the area in square feet of the earth garden bed? Okay, so if you're unfamiliar with how to look up area or how to find the area, this is something that you can be an independent learner by actually figuring it out on your own, on the internet, asking an adult, something like that, okay? So as we're going down here, question number 2, this gets a little bit tougher. It says, if we have 7 earth garden beds, what is the total area of all the beds? And notice how I put a reminder right here. It says, don't forget your label, okay? We want to make sure we always don't forget our label. And right now our label is square feet for both number 1 and number 2. All right, the third question right here is, we decided to extend each bed by 15 feet. What would our new total area be? Okay, so it's a little bit tougher. And once again, don't forget your label. The question number 4 even gets even tougher. Okay, remember, now what's really cool about this being a video is you can pause it whenever you want. So if you're having a hard time remembering what each question was, just pause it when I read it. Question number 4 says, we can harvest 30 pounds of lettuce or greens from one 35-foot bed. If we can make an average of $8 per pound at the market, how much money can we make by cutting all 7 beds at once? When I said cutting, I mean harvesting. Okay. Now notice how this time our label changed. It's not any longer square feet because my question's asking something different. My question says about how much money can we make. Okay, we're not asking for square footage anymore. We already found all the square feet of the beds. Okay. So once again, be careful with this one because it says 35 15-foot bed, not one of the other questions where it said we added 15 feet to it. All right, so here are the questions. I would like you to comment in the comment section any kind of strategies you may have used. You can also email me so I can share that with everyone else. All right, guys, we are building the ship while we're sailing right now. For those kids that just heard me say that, that just means that we're making this up as we go along. Since I can't teach in school, I'm going to teach on YouTube, okay? So stay tuned. Janine's going to be reading some books, and we're going to have some activities with some books in a little bit. All right, stay tuned, guys. Bye.
Okay, so to kind of simulate what goes on when you are doing a guided reading lesson with the intermediate grades. This is a nonfiction text called Earthworms, right there, okay? Opening up the text, and I won't read it word for word. We'll just go through and kind of talk about the text, talk about some interesting information that we read, and the text features. Text features are things that you find often in nonfiction texts mostly, but there are text features in fiction texts as well, such as bolded words, things like that. But right here, you'll notice the table of contents, where you'll see all the headings, and where you can find them in the text. So right here is the heading, all sorts of worms. You could ask yourself, what do you think you are going to learn just by looking at the heading of this text? Right here's another text feature, whereas it's called a caption, and it explains what's going on in the picture. It says, most earthworms are reddish-brown and about as long as your hand. While you're looking through this book, you can also think about the background knowledge that you already have when it comes to earthworms. We've all played out in the backyard before. We've all dug up earthworms. We've all kind of felt how they feel in our hands. Most of us will know that earthworms create soil by going through and eating all of the debris in the dirt. Okay, here's another text feature, a caption that explains this picture right here. Earthworms are easy to find. Dig in the garden with a spade or fork. You are sure to find some in the soil. Now, I know Mr. DeLauder did this before. He told me he only found one. We were hoping to find a few more. Usually we do when we're looking in our garden. So right there, I just made a connection to the text. I'm sure you guys can think of many connections to this text already. And the reason I'm not reading this word for word is when we do a guided reading lesson, we often spend more than one day on a text. And it's really good to have some prior knowledge, some background knowledge before you really dig into a text. As adults, we kind of do the same thing. We don't just start reading a book on its first page and keep going and going. We kind of want to know what the book's going to be about. We read the back of the book. We might do some research about the book before we start reading it, whether it's a fiction book or a nonfiction book. Another heading, and here is another text feature. This is a picture, and it's labeled, okay? This is labeling all the parts of the earthworm's body. Front, mouth, segment, bristles, saddle, and back. And right here it gives a little bit of information where a worm's eggs are made. I will read a little bit of this page just so that we can get some information about earthworms. A worm is a very simple animal. It has no skeleton, no lungs, no eyes, and no ears. Its body is a tube made of many tiny segments. Each segment is filled with liquid and has bristles that help the worm move. So now you can think about whether or not you learned something new, whether or not there was information in there that you already knew. And whether or not you can maybe make an inference as to the other information that's going to be in the text. Inferencing is more of a something that you would do with a fictional text, but you can do it with all kinds of texts. Okay, just taking a look at the pictures on this page. I like the information right here because I'm making a connection to our garden. Worms also feed on soil. They use the good parts as the soil goes through their body. Then they get rid of waste in a worm cast. And I'm going to make a connection right now. Mr. DeLauder and I used to have, a while ago, used to have a worm bin where we would be creating our own worm castings. And it was a very interesting experience. We aren't continuing doing it right now, but we used to see all kinds of little clumps like this, and we would use it in our garden to help the soil and the nutrients in the soil. Really, really, really great for the soil, but a lot of work. It's much cooler to see them doing it just all by themselves. Moving. So now we can think about what we learned in the previous portion of the text right here. We know that it has bristles that help the worm move. Now see, I didn't really know that before reading this text, so maybe that's something new that you learned as well. Okay, not only do they have bristles, but right here, you'll read worms have strong muscles to help them move. There are ring-shaped muscles inside each segment. These make their body shrink or spread out. Other muscles run along their body and make it grow short or long. Okay, notice the text features on this page. Notice the shape of the worms and how this one's kind of shorter and this one is longer. Imagine a worm getting shorter and longer to make itself move. And I hope you guys get just as excited as I do about earthworms. Okay, notice the text features on this page. Right here there are captions to 2 pictures. Without even reading the captions, you can kind of make an inference as to what information you'll learn, especially by reading this right here, which is called tunneling. I can infer, just by looking at the pictures, that tunneling means that that's when the worm actually creates a tunnel, and possibly for shelter. Okay, here is kind of an exciting part, hatching. Okay, I will read word for word this part because I believe that when new life is created, it's the most amazing thing in the world. So, hatching. You may, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. You may notice that I'm not following along with my finger. Usually, not all the time, but usually by 2nd or 3rd grade, maybe even earlier than that, we try to fade out the following along with our finger when it comes to reading word by word. I know my eyesight is really bad, so I still sometimes have to do it when the text is really small or something like that. But another strategy that you could use is maybe using a sentence reader. And I'm just going to grab this little thing right here. This is what I tend to do at school also. Just grab what I have on hand and just kind of block out sentence or line by line. Okay. This will help struggling readers as well, readers that have difficulties with reading through the entire word. Okay. Hatching. Worms' eggs take many weeks or months to grow in the cocoon. In that time, some of the eggs will die. Sometimes just 1 or 2 worms will hatch out of the cocoon. I'm going to make a connection because I know that caterpillars also make a cocoon, so we know what a cocoon is. A worm's cocoon. Adult worm with young worms. Young earthworms are about as long as a thumbnail. They are whiter than their parents, and they have no saddles at first. Otherwise, they look just the same. It takes 18 months for a young worm to grow up and lay eggs of its own. If it doesn't get eaten, the worm may live in the soil for 10 years or more. That's something that I didn't know. I did not realize that they could live that long. Enemies. Okay. Just for time's sake, I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but we can assume that enemies mean predators, right? Just by looking at the illustrations. Right here, food for birds. appears as though birds are also predators. Birds hunt for worms in the spring when other food is scarce. As plants ripen in the summer and fall, birds usually leave worms alone. I'll make a connection right here. I was noticing a couple of weeks ago when we were out in the garden. I was just kind of hanging out, and of course Mr. DeLauder was doing a whole bunch of work, but I was noticing just by looking at the yard that there were a whole lot of robins just poking their beaks into the ground, a whole bunch. And I realized that they were looking for food, and it was one of the very first warm days that we had had. Oh, look at this page. Now this page is full of just random facts. Okay. And right here are some more text features: the glossary and the index. Now the glossary will contain words that are probably unknown words before we have read the text, and they'll contain the definitions of these words. Okay, the index will tell you where you can find information on a certain topic. You can also use the table of contents. And use the headings and the page numbers to look for any specific information that you may want to know. So for example, one question I could ask you is, what page could we find moving on? Okay. Do you know the answer? I found moving right here. So that means that we'd find the information on pages 14 and 15. Moving. And this was one of my favorite pages. Let's use the glossary, okay? Now, worm cast. I talked about worm castings when I was talking about Mr. DeLauder and my worm bin that we used to have. Okay, look for the words worm cast and read the definition either out loud to someone who's watching this video with you or maybe to yourself. Okay, worm cast. The soil that passes out of a worm's body and makes a little pile on the grass. All right. Using the index. Let's just do that quickly. Where can we find information about eggs? There are 3 different pages. Okay, I found it right here. So we can find information on page 19, 20, and 21. I hope you guys enjoyed kind of going through what an initial day of guided reading kind of would look like for a nonfiction text.
So anybody else that would like to add in or share all these videos, that would be great, because I know that there are many students out there that would like to hear a teacher voice, even if I'm not their teacher. There's a lot of students out there that have had me as a teacher. So, for these with these videos, I'm really just trying. I'm trying to bring some normalcy, and I'm also trying to show. I'm also trying to show how education can change. One of the most important things I think we're going to all learn from this is that, going to a brick and mortar school isn't always necessary. It's necessary because society in the last 75 years or so has told us it's necessary, but it's really not. There's a lot more things I can say. There's a lot of thoughts I can have on this, but I'm pretty sure that every day I'll probably put a little bit more thought into what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. But once again, this is a time that everyone should be just listening to what you think is right, trying to get along with each other and trying to help each other out, trying to help out small businesses if you can in any possible way. Some of us are still getting paid. There's some people that aren't getting paid at all. So please help out the people that aren't getting paid at all. Okay, if you get a delivery of food, give that delivery driver a pretty big tip if you can. If you're not getting paid, try to figure out ways to reach out for help. I know some people are very proud and don't want to ask for help, but figure out ways to reach out, ask for help. There's plenty of people like us. We're willing to give up our time, give up some money, give up some things just for the greater good of everybody. One of the most important things I've learned in my 41 years is that when your neighbors and the people around you are picked up and are taken care of, you are also taken care of. The stronger the society, the stronger the individual. So, I'm not preaching here. I'm just saying help each other out. If you have a neighbor that you haven't talked to, go check on them. Give them a call. Walk up, knock on their door, make sure they're okay. Ask them if they need any help, because some people are just too proud to ask for that help. All right, guys, stay tuned.